Patrick's Day. We are delighted it is 11:08 and we're going to begin our congregational meeting. And so we are grateful that you are all here. We will confirm our quorum in just a few moments, but before then I'm going to ask George Muir if he would come forward and call the meeting to order.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to say thank you for showing up today. I know this is an important part of our church governance process that lets you, the congregation, govern Cathedral of Hope United Church of Christ. Thank you for giving up your Saturday morning. It's great to see all of your faces. My name is George Muir. I am the chair of the Board of Stewards through a couple more hours. Thank you. Thank you. I've been very blessed to serve on the board, and I want to congratulate everybody that's put their names forward to serve. If we can give them a round of applause before we start. Okay, so I would like to officially call this meeting of the annual congregational meeting of the Cathedral of Hope United Church of Christ to order today, March 17th, 11-ish. Okay, so a couple of housekeeping things before we do our opening prayer. We're going to have all of our forms. We'll tell you when it's appropriate time to vote. Please follow directions as best you can. At the very end, we'll have some open questions from the floor if anybody has any. During the financials, you'll have a chance to ask questions if you have any. I would now be very pleased if Reverend Andrea would open us in prayer.
Will you join me in prayer? Holy and gracious God, we come before you this day to do the work of the church. For all those who are gathered in this space, I ask your blessing. Holy One, sometimes we come to these meetings with anxiety, with frustration, with the thought that maybe there are other things we could do on this Saturday morning. But, Holy One, we know that this work is as important as the worship we do throughout the week. For this is the work that we do as a congregation, a people called to serve you and to serve the church. God, this day we do hard work. We say goodbye to leaders who have served us well, and we say hello to new leaders, to those who will carry this church into the future. Holy One, this day we discuss the highs and lows of the church, and we turn our eyes to what lays before us, to new projects and new possibilities. Bless the work that we're going to do in this space. Bless those individuals who have felt the call to serve. Bless us as we make hard decisions. Help us to open our hearts to you and to feel the Spirit moving in this space. Holy One, I come to you in the name of the one who called me to serve, Jesus, who is the Christ, and it is in his name that we may all pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that wonderful prayer. Now is a time that everybody waits for at this meeting. We would like to know if we have a quorum that's been certified, and our secretary is Stephen Fontaine.
Testing. I'd like to piggyback on what George said earlier. It's been a privilege to serve this congregation on the Board of Stewards for the last 3 years as your secretary, and I'm looking forward to the new leadership. And at 11:04, we had a quorum of 209, which exceeded our quorum by 9 people. Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Before I turn this over to the candidate forum, a couple of housekeeping things to let you know. After the candidate forum, we will do the first vote. That is the paper with only the candidate's name. We have voting in 2 sections because a couple years ago we had a tie for the board. So if there's a tie, you'll get instructions after the vote's counted how to resolve the tie. So after the candidate forum, we'll give you instructions explicitly then how to vote for the candidates, just as a heads up. So now it is my extreme pleasure to introduce Minister Winter Laws over here. She has completely redone our process for how we bring your candidates to you for the Board of Stewards. She's made it a welcoming process, an engaging process, and a completely non-discriminatory process. So Minister Winter Laws, if you'll please come up.
Thank you, George. I appreciate give them the credit, and we'll definitely be moving forward with that so I can announce exactly who the nominations was on the nominations committee this year. Oh, next slide. Oh, there it is right there. All right, next slide. I'm supposed to do it. It's a star. It's a star.
Should be the bottom button.
We're not even stretching. We already have quorum.
Okay, it's the top button.
Okay, thank you. All right. As you can see on the who the nominations committee is, I'd like for those people that were on the nominations committee to please stand. I want to thank them. I want to thank them for their hard work. We have been meeting since November, although the whole process started in September. And they have been working to put together a new process, not only documenting what the process was for us, but documenting for who's already on the Board of Stewards and for the candidates. And all of that has been a very positive experience for me in terms of leading, having them, some of those people were on previous nominations committee as well as the new people. So thank you again. All right, I must have forgot my glasses. So with regard to that, I'm going to move around so I can make sure I see. No. Okay, so what we're talking about here is the nominations committee. I'll move around with the mic. How does that sound? All right. We did recruit some applicants, but I think even more so importantly in terms of recruiting the applicants, we wanted to make sure too that they were qualified to serve on the board. That is very important for us in terms of things like are they contributors today, not necessarily only financially, but to the life of the church. That is very important for them to be giving in multiple ways, and we found a value in that as well. So as part of that, the other thing that we worked on is putting together an orientation meeting for the candidates, allowing them the opportunity to ask us questions. Once they submitted their documentation, we validated who they were, if you will, in terms of making sure that there's summaries and things like that, the information that you're reading here in terms of the Board of Stewards, that this represented them, and in an interest in a way that you would honestly want to know about them. Additionally, one of the other things that we did in the whole process was we met several times throughout the season, if you will, from September through February to ensure that we had all of the processes documented and things like that. So as I stand here and make this up, no, I'm joking. So the other thing that we wanted to do is make sure we've developed a process on how to count the votes after this particular process. And it's of value for you to know that after you vote, you're turning in your votes, we're going to collect the votes, and we're going to collect them at the back, and then the nomination committee is the people that will be counting the votes in the back room. For you guys, as was stated a little bit earlier, you will continue with the meeting while we count the votes in the back, so we'll still be looking at things like the bylaws and things of that nature, and then we'll come back and we'll let them know that we finished counting the votes, and then we will make the announcement. We'll also share with the candidates a little bit in advance of telling you guys, just out of respect, to let them know who won. Strategic board, okay. Thank you. One of the things I wanted to make sure that it was clear is that this is a strategic board. One of the things that has come up in the past is what kind of board is this? And so this is not a board that is necessarily tactical and is in the day-to-day business of this church. They are looking out for our future and how are we going to be moving forward. The day-to-day business of the church is run by the ministers of this church and the administrative staff as to how this church operates and performs on a day-to-day basis. From a strategic perspective, we're looking out not only to next year, not only till 3 years from now, we're looking out from 5 to 10 years from now. What do we want this church to look like? And that is of value to all of us because we have invested here. We know what it's like to be a part of this church for the last 40 plus years. We want this church to go forward and perform in a capacity that when others need to join or have a space, a safe place to worship God, they have this church, and that's of importance. So we wanted you guys to know that when you look at the candidates, you're not only looking at them for what could be done today, but what could be done for the future. All right, thank you. So you guys didn't know you're going to get this entertainment from me, right? All right. So one of the other things that we changed about this particular nomination season, if you will, was we asked you, each of you, that when the candidates were solidified, we asked you to give us questions for the board. When that occurred, during the meet the candidate sessions in the back over there. And why did we do that? We did that because we did not necessarily want the candidates to be surprised by the questions, but have the opportunity to prepare for the questions and answer them. So we have asked them, we've given them these questions already. You see them. You guys submitted them. There were 3 that were submitted, and we have selected all 3. I think we did a little tweaking on one to make sure it was prepared for a strategic board viewpoint. So when we got those questions, we did pass them on earlier this week to the candidates to allow them the opportunity in their 3 to 5 minute presentation, they could answer these 3 questions, okay? All right, I would like for the candidates to come forward, please. Not necessarily by name, you can come on up, and then I'll just announce them so you'll know who they are. Roscoe Compton Kelly, Rich Dudley, Mary Hershire, Beverly McCrae, and Vicky Pat's daughter. You can have a seat. I want to thank them for volunteering, and some of them were volunteered. No, they volunteered to participate and contribute at this Board of Stewards level, and we are very grateful for that. The other thing we changed about the process that is of value that you want to know is we actually had a basket, it's sitting over there, that we asked them to draw a number to present themselves to you. And we're giving them 3 to 5 minutes. So that selection process has already occurred, and I will go ahead and share with you who's first, second, all the way through 5, and then they'll come up as as each one completes. Roscoe is number 1, Mary is number 2, Vicky is 3, Beverly is 4, and Rich is number 5. Please give them a hand.
Well, good morning. So my name is Roscoe Compton Kelly. Most of you have seen me on the screen, usually on a Sunday morning, but I also am a member of Voices of Hope on our Wednesday night contemporary service as well. For those of you that have not followed me on Facebook, but see my daily outings in my normal work, I am actually a regional field supervisor with Scholastic. For those of you that may not be familiar with Scholastic, I actually had that question come up to me. We're actually the largest publisher of children's books in the world. I work for the book fairs division of the company as a regional supervisor. That is 22 reps that work underneath me in New Mexico, Texas, and Louisiana. So I spend a lot of time in the car visiting schools throughout the Metroplex, as well as other states as well too, and really helping our reps to work through really helping our kids become better readers and have access and choice. That's really what we're about. So I joined the church in 2015, recently was married in the church as well too, to my husband Brian, and really one of the main things that drew me to the church was the love and really the truly giving and caring that happened. It is so genuine that happens within this congregation. And I was raised in a Catholic background, and for those of you know that from a giving standpoint, you're almost guilted into it. If you don't give in regular tithe, well, fire and brimstone, hell hath upon you, you're not gonna make it anywhere. So from a giving standpoint for me, to come here was a very different experience. My parents, my mom's side of the family was actually very active in our Catholic church. I was very active as well. Too. I worked with our youth board, which was basically a youth version of what the Board of Stewards currently is, and I serviced, there was 92 parishes that serviced throughout there. My uncles, my grandparents, even my mom, all served on parish council within the church, and so really I felt like that was gonna be my calling at some point. I was really active in our church, and I felt that that would be where I led to, until I was told by our pastor that I could no longer have communion for being gay. So we fast forward to now and being a member of this congregation and being able to feel that not only did I have a place here, but also was able to give. One of the things that I learned in coming into the new member meeting was a statistic, and I know this number is probably higher than that now, be it that we're down another 3 years down the road, but Todd Scoggins actually gave the statistic to me of that for every person that walks through the store, for us to care and minister to them, it was around $50 a person for that to occur. And that, for whatever reason, resonated with me and really started my giving process. Now, beyond that, it has moved to so much more. I've met so many wonderful individuals, so many wonderful people that have instilled such a love and affection for this place that I want to see it sustained. I want to see it grow. What I see in 5 to 10 years, I see this campus in a completely different light. We have this beautiful plan that most of you will get to see, if you haven't seen already, with the banners in the background. And in 5 to 10 years, not only do I see this campus vision well along its way with our resource centers and new driveways and all the things that are entailed in that, but also see that we've grown our congregation 2 times more. We have satellite campuses. We're reaching out to demographics that we've never reached to before. And that is all achievable. Really from a strategic planning purpose, and especially in my job, I'm not leading the charge in terms of going out and doing the everyday work. Really what I'm doing is overseeing the work that's being done within our schools to ensure that kids are getting access and choice. The same thing would happen within this congregation as well too. Really, we are the overseers. We oversee that plan, what is happening within that plan, and really are kind of just the guiding force and the driving force to see what's happening next 5 or 10 years down the road. I treasure having that knowledge within my 16 and a half years that I've worked with Scholastic, and I've held different managerial positions, but worked within developing different strategic plans within that, and always being able to oversee and drive that forward. We're currently in a 2020 vision with our company as well too, that we're looking towards the future with new systems in place. So part of that in all of those things and all of those plans is that as a representative of the board, I have to be that voice that comes out to you. It should be transparency, correct? you should be able to know what is happening within your church. If you're coming to a board meeting, if you're not, I highly suggest you do, because this is where you get the information. The congregational meetings is where you get the information. But as your representative, it's me and my voice being able to come to you and say, these are why we give. This is why we have the things that we have within this church, and why we want to grow is to be able to have that sustainability over the next, not even 5 to 10 years, but 20 years, 30 years down the road. I want to be able to have my kids say, hey, we were members of Cathedral, I hope as well too. So thank you. We appreciate all your efforts and your attendance here today, and thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Mary Hershiser, and my lovely wife Jana and I live in Allen, Texas, not Allen, Oklahoma, that some of you like to say when you come up to visit us. Jana has been a member of COH since 1996 and part of the amazing music ministry for 21 years. I joined the church in 2007 and became involved in volunteer ministry. I have volunteered in the past with the distribution of the Thanksgiving baskets and have assisted with stocking the pantry on Sundays, on Pack the Pantry Sunday, and I have served on the personnel committee. The church has played a very, very important role in our lives, and we are blessed and thankful to call this place home. In April of 2017, I retired from the Dallas Police Department after a 32-year career. While on the department, I had the opportunity to work for COH for 13 years to provide protection for the staff and congregation. I learned the importance of maintaining a welcoming environment while being vigilant about our safety. To continue my ministry, I chose to run for the board and was elected. This was an opportunity that was given to me by you, the congregation, a responsibility that I do not take lightly. I have served, during my tenure on the Board of Stewards, I have served as vice chair, board liaison to the personnel committee, and I am a member of the Dallas Hope Board of Charities, board of directors. I believe in the past 3 years, there has been an increased cohesiveness that has brought this congregation back together. This can be attributed to the work done by faithful members of this congregation who believe so strongly in our mission, and an incredible clergy and staff. Under Reverend Neal's leadership, a strong foundation for growth and stability has been set, but we must continue to build upon this foundation. I believe board members must lead by example, and it is important that we continue to tithe and make that part of our spiritual discipline, and also encourage others to do so as well. Working with the financial committee and the advancement committee is vital to promoting long-term stability within this church. There are talented individuals on both those committees, and the work they do is phenomenal. However, if a situation arises and the board needs to take action, we will all work together to find the solution. I believe the future of COH is very bright. I anticipate in 5 years the completion of the driveway. I anticipate other areas of work to start on the campus. I believe there will be growth in membership and all the ministries involved. In 10 years, I think the campus will be complete and we will be on solid ground financially. I have learned a lot in the past 3 years, and I am so thankful to have worked alongside some very remarkable past and current board members who all share a love and a passion for this church. As we continue to care, connect, and grow, I would like to use my experience and knowledge that I have gained to represent you on the Board of Stewards. Thank you.
I didn't really need his help. I just like to be on the arm of a pretty man. My name is Vicki Pat's daughter. I have been a member since 2010. My wife Lynn and I have lived in Dallas for 12 years and Arlington before that. We have 2 rescued dogs, a cat, and a pond full of large koi. My favorite pastime is to sit by our pond, watch the koi swim, marveling at God's beautiful creatures. They make my day so much brighter. I have taken leadership roles in just about everything I have felt passion about. As a midwife, I volunteered for the organization boards on the local, state, and national level, including the presidency. National board members participated in strategic planning sessions. This practice will be important to know where we are as a church, where we want to go, and how to get there. I also organize conferences and seminars for our members. We used a consensus-building process, which strives to make every voice heard and considered in the final decision, much different than Robert's Rules of Orders, where it's either yay or nay. I've retired from midwifery and now work as a sonographer, performing ultrasound in obstetric offices. I have a compassionate bedside manner and a willingness to listen and go the extra mile to help my patient feel comfortable and safe. In our local koi club, I have also been president and have created fundraising opportunities such as our spring koi auction at North Haven Gardens every year. That'll be in May, by the way. This brings new members to the club and money to fund other projects. My history has had a long spiritual journey. I had very negative connotations about Christianity growing up, and all I heard was all the ways that I did not fit in. When I came to COH the first time in the mid-90s, just like I've heard many other people say, I sat near the back in the middle where I couldn't be noticed, and I cried through the whole service. There was some woman that was next to me that put her arm around me and kept it there through the whole service. I knew I was home. We believe in the mission statement of the Cathedral of Hope to reclaim Christianity as a faith of extravagant grace, radical inclusion, and relentless compassion. I guess I've always been a bit of a rebel that way. We saw firsthand that the people are the church. When Joe Hudson resigned, we doubled our commitment to support both congregation and staff with our faith and our tithing. Some of the ministries that I've been involved in have been the Sources of Hope, the bookstore, the Women's Council Ministry, and the Walk, which was a life-changing experience for me last year, and then this year I actually got to be on the team, which was amazing. This is an incredible group of men and women who know how to serve God through service to others. Financial sustainability relies on a diverse congregation that supports our ministry either through service or tithing. I've read that we need to bring in 20% of our average Sunday attendance as new members every year, and I believe we're probably doing that. A sustainable church is doing the work of Christ in its community, self-supporting and creating leadership and tithing. This brings me back to the Walk ministry, and I can't say enough about this. It's so important to our faith community. Not only does the Walk deepen our faith and create bonds, but leaders seem to rise from it every year. As Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. said, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. Spiritual health shows when congregations sustain their ministry and can reimagine ourselves through shifts in ideas or leadership. Spiritually healthy congregations are able to take that first step. This is a pivotal moment in the life of this church. Cathedral of Hope is a leader in the movement to bring Christianity back to a place where we are more than Christians, we are followers of Jesus. In 5 years, I suggest our congregation will be increased by at least 25%, with even greater outreach to the marginalized. Our ministry staff have intentionally become involved in many faith leader groups to help us all band together and support each other. In 10 years, I hope we will be known as one of the founders of this new Christian movement. I want to be a fresh face, fresh perspective, an eager participant on the Board of Stewards. Church governance is benefited by experience, but also the newer voice and listening ear. I ask that my previous experience, as well as passion for our church's mission, will get your vote. I look forward to serving you. Thank you.
Good morning. Wow. My name is Bev McGray. Beverly, I think, but only if you're my mother and I'm in trouble. My wife, Susan, and I have been members here for 12, going on 13 years. She would know the exact date because she's Rain Man, but I'm a little more. Anyway, we were married right here. We've had 2 of our grandchildren baptized here. We've been involved in usher ministry, the Welcome Center when we used to have coffee and donuts before service, Cathedral couples. We used to host the Cup of Joe, for those of you who remember that ministry. We kind of set up the food and refreshments. You know, for most of my adult life, I wasn't a church goer, and I think a lot of us have the same story. We were not welcomed in too many churches. So when I came here, unlike the story you just heard, I actually sat in the front row because my Catholic wife thinks that gets you closer to God or something, I'm not sure. So first time in church in, 20-some years, front row. But I'll tell you, when I heard the message that is spoken here, like many of you have said, I knew I was home. And my passion ever since has been to have more people have that experience. It's life-changing, and I think we all know that. I've never been involved in any governance of the church. Quite frankly, I've never had any desire or interest in that. But right now, I just feel like the church is going in the right direction. I mean, I've always believed in the mission and vision of this church, but right now I feel like we are so on the path and we're doing exactly what we need to be doing, and now it just feels like the time to get involved and help us go in the right direction. Our focus is on the right things. Our leadership is amazing in our clergy. I mean, the work that's being done here just inspires me to get more involved and be more a part of it. So that's why I'm here in this very uncomfortable moment for me. For the church, I just want us to continue to focus on not just what happens here in this church, but what we can do, out there. Like our clergy always says, what can we do to change the city, change the community, change the state, change the nation? I truly believe what we have here is a gift, and our responsibility is to share that gift. And by sharing that gift, we set an example. And hopefully that example we spread, that we set, is for other churches to do what we're doing and not spread the messages of hate and exclusion. I feel like 5-10 years from now, I believe that Cathedral will be seen as the leader in the movement away from what Reverend Neal calls toxic theology, and towards the Christianity that we hear about every week here of inclusion, equality, and justice. What I would like to see going forward for us is to enhance our partnerships with organizations in the community, the Resource Center, Equality Texas, HRC. By doing this, I feel like we can increase our visibility and attract more, young, diverse membership into our community to keep the congregation growing. We always say we need to bring in young people because we're going to die off eventually, so we need to kind of pass on the legacy to the next generation. So I feel like that's a good way for us to do that, is to get out there into the community and the organizations that share our vision. In closing, I'd just like to say I'm so proud of this church, and I just want to do whatever I can to do my part to keep it going and doing what we're doing. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. It is still morning, even after all that. I'm mindful of the privilege and honor it is to come before you today, and I want to thank the Nominations Committee for their consideration and your consideration today. Our denomination reminds us that God is still speaking, and one of the clearest ways to hear His word is to be in service to God, the church, and others. Today, I'm prepared to leverage, I think, my experience and skill to serve that board. So let me talk about that background. My educational background is I'm a nurse. I have an undergraduate degree from Oral Roberts University in Tulsa and a graduate degree from Texas Women's University in Healthcare Administration. I'm about to celebrate my 30th anniversary of work at Methodist Health System in Dallas, of which the last 25 years of that have been in management or executive positions. That has afforded me a great opportunity to work with management and a leadership board there that's almost 3 times the size of the board here. It's also given me the opportunity to work with the state board in the Texas Nurses Association in Austin, where I've traveled for 6 years quarterly down to participate in their meetings. I'm also the chair of the Pastoral Care Advisory Committee for the healthcare system, which means I help oversee the clinical pastoral education for our system's 4 hospitals. My faith background is I came to Cathedral of Hope initially in 2001 when our contemporary service was on Sunday nights then, because that is my background with an Assembly of God and Pentecostal background. I can't help that, and occasionally on Sunday, even in my vestments of highest service, I can't restrain Pentecostal hands. After a time period, I came to recognize I was ready to commit my time, talent, and treasure to this organization, and that's when I decided to become a member. As soon as I became a member, I dug in full steam. Chad and I, my husband, joined the couples group. I thought we were good at 13 years being together. That's an amazing group where you hear every month people have been together for 20 and 30 years. I look forward to that time. I used my skills to dig in with the Strategic Planning Committee. Roscoe and I both have had a great year in that. We charged ourselves at the beginning of the year to work with the staff to create some measurable goals. We did that. We created a dashboard. That dashboard is still presented by me every month at that meeting. And also, we worked to create the calendar for some great meetings. If you've been to the last 2 meetings, you'll see the change in focus of the board, more strategic planning. We've had some great presentations. Even though Erin says that goal speak is not her language of love, she's stepped up to the plate and done some great presentations in the last 2 months. I hold myself accountable for that and think I've contributed greatly to that. So based on those experiences and my work with the Strategic Planning Committee, I think I've equipped myself pretty well to serve the board. How do I see the future? We're called to reclaim Christianity. That's a bold statement. We have a bold history, though. A line I heard this week that came to me was, we are not called to be like other Christians. We're called to be like Christ. And that truly speaks to where I think we are and where we're going. I want to answer this question from 2 dimensions of our future, internal and external. Internally, the key theme there is engagement. For those who've been to the last couple board meetings, you've heard a lot of conversation, migraine-inducing conversations, according to Stacia, about membership committee and the role it has. I know that Morgan's probably tired of hearing me say it's not about membership, it's about engagement. We have a lot of work to do, and we need engaged members to do that. Engaged members need to know what they give, what they get, do they belong, and how do we grow together. And I think one of the changes that we can see coming forward with that group is to help educate that and change how we bring new members on. Externally, we have a progressive message to share. All you have to do is watch the videos we had last week for the offertory to realize there's work to be done. When you see thousands of kids walk out of school because they need a voice because to say that they're afraid, there's work to be done. When I read this week that there's a 6th grader who came home sad, forlorn, and felt bullied because he might be bisexual, there's work to be done. When you realize that 6th grader killed himself because he didn't feel valued, there's work to be done. That work takes an engaged membership. And so the last thing I want to talk about, as I get the signal, is the money part. I believe in tithing. I believe that we set the sail for that. If you've been to ORU, and when I was there, not like when Killjoy Diaz was there probably, you heard the concept of seed faith. Give and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. I never believed that in a prosperity message. I believed it is a group message. I don't believe I give to get. I give because I've been given. Thanks.
I know what it feels like to stand up here and be nervous, and I know each one of these candidates gave you what they had on a nervous system. And I want to just take the time to thank them again, please. Okay. It is time to vote. So at this point, if you will pull out your candidacy documentation and vote, we will have people collecting those papers momentarily. Thank you. Hold on.
So please carefully read these directions. Way before I was on the board, I used to help Barb count these ballots. Circle up to 3 people you would like to be on the Board of Stewards. If you circle 4, your ballot's discarded. If you put stars and stripes and something else and we can't tell who you voted for, your ballot is discarded. Do not become disenfranchised. Please follow the directions. Circle up to 3 people you would like for the Board of Stewards.
Just for fun, I want to re-emphasize, only vote for 3 people. And then at this time, only submit your candidate ballot for the Board of Stewards. Thank you.
Again, please, let's thank all the candidates for stepping up. As you make your decision and as the ballots are turned in, we'd like to do this as quickly as you can because they'll count these votes during the remaining part of the meeting. And then, for your entertainment and enjoyment, we will be having a minister review. So can I have a hand for our ministers, please? And that means they'll be reviewing, not that we're reviewing them, okay? Okay, thank you.
We're just going to give the ballot counters and collectors just a couple of minutes just to make sure everything's done. There's more at the back there. If you still have a ballot and you wish to hand it in, please raise it so that the ballot collectors can make sure that they have everybody's ballot. Awesome, we're all done. Now one more over here, over there, over here. As we wait for pink smoke, we will continue in our meeting. We wanted to take this opportunity to give you some information. We think it's really important in this transparent era of church that you hear from the ministry leaders about what goals we set ourselves for 2017 and how we achieved those goals. Part of the restructuring of the second floor, as we lovingly refer to it, was the move from a hierarchical operations system to a system that was more flat in its understanding. So we've changed the system from where everybody reported to the senior minister to a system where we moved ourselves into what I lovingly refer to as quads, but there are more than 4 of them. And the reason why I continue to call them quads is because I like that terminology. But each quad had some areas of responsibility and therefore had staff that reported to them, and then the quad leaders reported to me. That made it a much, much flatter system. It made it a much more accountable system, and it also ensured that people were getting regular supervision rather than everybody just reporting to the senior minister. As a part of that, we took our vision and our mission. Our mission is to reclaim Christianity as a faith of extravagant grace, of radical inclusion, whoops, I go too far, there we go, and relentless compassion. And if you've read the mission statement just recently, we added a statement to that which said how we do that and why we do that. And so if you go to the website, you will see that we have added some verbiage because we felt that it was responsible of us to say how we do that and why we do that. Because a mission statement otherwise just stands alone as a nice phrase, but actually doesn't have implication. So we just added some verbiage to that. We put ourselves into 5 quads. I know, doesn't work. 5 quads. Worship, care, connect, grow, and development. With the central part of those 5 areas being care, connect, and grow, because we think it's absolutely important that in a church, as individuals within that church, that it's absolutely imperative that we care, we connect, and we grow. And surrounded by that, of course, is our worship and our development. So in the worship area, which is the area that I'm primarily responsible with David Moldenher, who's our Director of Worship and Arts, we set ourselves 3 primary goals. We looked at the music ministry, and we decided that we wanted to move our music ministry into areas with organized teams for better care and organization. And so in a similar way that we organized our staff, we also organized the choir and the orchestra, so that each of the sections of the choir and orchestra are led by folks who will be able to break the number down in order that we might care, connect, and grow for each of those individuals. It also meant that if an individual was missing, that those leaders within those sections were able to have personal relationship and to find out if there was something going on in their lives that we needed to know about. So we broke our worship down into areas that are organized into teams. We also increased communications and ministry organization via our planning center group of tools that are online. When I first got here, there were several systems that we used in order to facilitate communication. And depending on where you sat in the organization, depended on which system you used. That was really difficult to manage. And so we've looked at several platforms that could be used both on-site and externally, and landed with Planning Center. And Planning Center now is being used for 90% of our worship operations, and our plan is to move that to 100% in 2018. Planning Center has opportunity for us to move ourselves into groups. It also has some sign-up responsibilities, and it's also accessible because it's primarily in the cloud. It's accessible wherever you are around the world. And so you're able to connect those individuals and send individual emails to the groups. And that's the Planning Center that we're going to be moving forward, even within our small group ministries within our church. And then we evaluated the worship experience via a congregational survey in order to meet the needs of a progressive congregation. And many of you received a link last year, about October, November time, asked to submit the survey answers. Over 250 people completed that survey, which actually is a really good representation on any kind of survey that's sent out to a congregation percentage-wise. And the results of that survey have now been analyzed and will be reported to the board at their next Board of Stewards meeting. And so we have some really, really good, robust information from you about what you like, what you don't like, what you're looking for, and how we can hold ourselves accountable as the worship quad to ensure that we meet the needs of the constituents and of those who are not yet here. So we're going to be producing those results specifically at the next Board of Stewards meeting. Of course, there were many, many other things that we could have focused on, but those were the 3 high-level goals that we wanted to address in 2017. As we move into 2018, we wanted to launch a new gospel choir, and we have successfully done that. We've experienced them in worship at least 2 times already this year. I want to give a big shout out to our gospel choir. Would you please show them some appreciation? We also wanted to increase volunteer participation in all music ministry areas. And to increase that percentage in 2018 by 20%. And so we've been working on a baseline of what that looks like, and therefore have some measurable goals about how we have added to the music participation in the ministry life of the church. And then we also wanted to launch a modern service. That doesn't mean that the 9, 11, and 1 o'clock are not modern. But we all have our own understanding of what that means. We also didn't want to necessarily call it a contemporary worship, but a new modern worship experience. And you would have probably seen writings about that, and we were successfully able to launch a preview of that worship service this past Wednesday in the Interfaith Peace Chapel. There's been some questions about, does that mean that we're making the 11 o'clock our modern service? No. The 9 and 11 will remain exactly as, well, not exactly as they are because we're always changing, but the 9 and 11 will continue to have its flavor. But the chapel service will be in the Interfaith Peace Chapel at 10 o'clock. And our next preview service of the chapel is on Sunday, the 8th of April, the week after Easter. And that will be in the IPC. And for those of you who were able to attend this last Wednesday's chapel service, you would have noted that the IPC was already full to capacity. And it was just an extraordinary worship experience for those who like and who need that kind of worship. I said then, and I'll say again, worship is about how we create gateways to relationship with God. It's not about one worship service being better than the other. It's about those gateways that we allow people to find relationship with God. And so we want to create a diverse worship experience here at Cathedral, that no matter where you are in your spiritual journey, no matter where you are in your spiritual identity, you can find something that will find a way to create a gateway, a pathway to a relationship with God. So those are the goals so far for 2018. There are more coming for the Board of Stewards, but those are the high-level things, and you can see that we are well on our way to working and moving those goals as we move through this year. I'm going to ask Reverend Erin if she'll come forward now and report back and forward on the area of care.
Happy St. Gertrude Day to you all. She's this patron saint of cats, if you didn't know that. Today's her day. Everyone was saying good morning, so I wanted to be different. So in the area of care, I oversee lay leadership, obviously in this area, and also Alan and Dan, who are the ministers to youth and the ministers to family and children. And we have seen a great growth in the end of the last year and the beginning of this year. We're so excited about what's going on. And Rich is right, this is not my love language, although speaking in front of you is, just not with bullet points like this. Okay, I've already taken half of my 2 minutes, I think. So what we've done at the end of last year is we reorganized and restructured our congregational care ministry, and many of you have experienced that and saw the launch of it and saw those who came up front. I want you to give Reverend Sherry Hilliard an extra applause because she has been, stand up. She has done so much of the work of that restructuring behind the scenes to organize the way in which we do care and visitations at Cathedral of Hope. We are a large church, and so we want to make sure that how we do that makes sense and helps us out in the long run, and I think we've done that. We also created some more events and some new programming for our children, youth, and families. For those of you who know Trunk or Treat, I was amazed and impressed by how many of you got on board with Trunk or Treat. Raise your hand if you were involved in Trunk or Treat. Look at the engagement of this community. We think we had over 1,000 people, families and children, come through here that would have never seen anything like this before. And so thank you so much for your engagement in that. We also upped our Christmas events, and I think we're working towards, not this year, but the following year in 2019, having a big Easter blowout. So that's some of the ways in which we're dreaming. Sorry, that's the next slide. I'm not doing this very well. I told you. This is not my love language. And we also are in the process of developing criteria and evaluation for adult formation programming. For me, that involves organizing small groups as well as all of our programming and our ministries. We also are utilizing Planning Center. So if you've signed up recently, you know that we are utilizing that format so that we can upload things rather than email a bunch of things. Like, we get enough emails, right? Now you can go somewhere, you can register. If you're a leader, you can find what you need there. I just upload it on the cloud and you can get it what you need. And so we're really excited about that. In 2018, what we're excited about is increasing our adult faith formation engagement through small group ministry. So some of you got an email yesterday, and some of you will see in our weekly coming up in the next few weeks that we are going to start to resurge what means to be a circle group, a small group, life groups. We're going to continue and expand that ministry this year. That is my goal. We are going to update and implement our new Safe Church policy. So if you don't know, anytime you have those under the age of 18, you need to make this a safe place for them, and a place where adults know the boundaries. And so we are putting together a new Safe Church policy. We're finalizing that in the first quarter of this year, and then we're going to bring it to the board and implement and strategize around it. It'll involve teams and people putting together to make sure that we have a safe space for our youth and children. And lastly, focused training and recruitment to increase congregational care ministry team. I believe we can increase our team by 25% this year from what we started the year with, and I know that we can do that. If any of you have any experience in congregational care ministry, please see Reverend Sherry or I. It has been a joy to continue to serve you here. Again, strategic planning is not my love language, but I love that we can come to you and share with you our visions and our goals and our dreams, and we can show you all the hard work that we have done in a way that is accessible to you. So thank you so much.
I think everyone's been saying their strategic planning and just goal setting is not their skill set, so to speak. But I think from what we've seen in the last year, that is not the case. Every one of our team leaders and even not just executive staff, but also lower staff and even volunteer leaders have been very exceptional, not only at collaborating with others, but also in actually goal setting. So we're very excited about that. I'm Michael Diaz. I'm grateful to be part of the staff, but as well to work in the Connect area. And so Connect involves any areas that are involved with facilities, sources of hope, all of our volunteers, first impressions and newcomers, and as well as our Spanish-speaking ministries at the current point. And for the last year, we just some of the highlights that we had. First off, we increased our volunteer participation in First Impressions Ministries by 15%. And this was a huge goal of ours for the, one of the reasons is because these are easy entry opportunities for newcomers to actually get involved. And so kudos to Anita Hattie. Anita, will you raise your hand so we can all see you? And our volunteer ministry and volunteer development coordinator, but as well to Bobby and Gary and our leaders on Wednesday nights and in our Spanish-speaking ministries, really doing a great job of just recruiting folks in volunteer participation, as well as sources of hope. Where is Sue? There she is. Sue Schrader, will you stand up for us all? Just let us see you real quick. So Sue has been here for a little while we'll say. And Sue has great institutional knowledge, and she is a person who has been not only willing to see things from different perspectives, but also to have enough energy to embrace ideas from other folks and to work with volunteers and to create a new environment with new energies. And we're grateful that she and her team of volunteers have been able to implement new strategies for sales and revenues that actually resulted in the last year of increases of 26% in the Sources of Hope gifts and bookstore. So we're grateful for that. And we're looking forward to a great year this year. Already, we are 25% ahead of where we were at this point last year. And so kudos to Sue and her team of volunteers. As well, in our Spanish-speaking worship service, you may not see them a whole lot because you may not go to the 1 o'clock service. And you should know that we had over 20-some people vote absentee ballot for that service. And as well, we had some staff changes over the last year. And so it is primarily a volunteer-led service, but we are grateful that we've been able to work on the core volunteers, leaders, and that has resulted in 53% of our congregants in our Spanish-speaking worship service being involved in some sort of a volunteer ministry. So that's over half the congregation, and as well, over 50% already for this year have been involved in small group ministry. And so they are small, yet mighty, right? We all carry the banner of hope within us, and I'm grateful that our Spanish-speaking folks have been taking hope in stride and really carrying the torch for spreading hope in our community. For this year, we are going to focus on increased collaboration with newcomer integration with our membership committee. We're also calling that our engagement team. You heard Rich talking about engagement with our membership committee. It really is about engagement, and we're looking forward to working with key volunteers to make this a banner year in terms of how we integrate newcomers. As well, in the Sources of Hope bookstore, we're looking forward to a full launch of our new point of sale system to get a hold of our inventory, but also to take Sources of Hope online. We are looking forward to that. And as well, with Lynn and her team, we're going to be increasing our revenues from our facilities rentals via new customer acquisition strategies. So we're looking forward to a great year. We're trying to create revenues. We rely on donations and the good faith of our engaged members. And as well, we want to create sustainable cash flows in all areas of the church. So with that, I will hand it over to Reverend Davis.
Here at Cathedral of Hope, we want you to be able to be cared for and to care for others, to find connection, make deep, meaningful connections with the congregants, other congregants, and with the world around us. And we want you to be able to grow in your faith. We also want to share this message of connection and care and growth with the communities that are around us in the Metroplex and indeed even into the world. And my name is Reverend Andrea Davis, and I have the privilege of facilitating the grow areas of Cathedral of Hope. And when I talk about grow, sometimes I use a word that makes people uncomfortable, and that word is evangelism. But I don't know if we should be uncomfortable with the act of sharing the message of hope and love that we carry. So when I talk about grow, I'm talking about you growing in your own faith, your own connections to God, and also helping other people know that God loves them, and this is a place of hope that welcomes them. 2017 was a big year for us. We did some very basic infrastructure stuff that's going to help us share that message of hope in the world. This included creating an in-depth events calendar so that you know what opportunities you have to be cared for and care for others, connect and grow in your faith. Our team, including Chris Chisholm and Charles Owen, worked really, really hard to instill some brand standards. So you're going to start seeing some more consistent brand standards throughout all of the various publications, including your bulletin and beyond. And that actually takes a lot of work, but ultimately will continue to show us as this amazing professional organization that we are. And this is really boring, but we got a new server this year. This is amazing because one of the things that we're actively trying to do as part of our outreach into the world is really delve into this world of video, and we couldn't do that without some bigger server space. You've seen the videos in our offering videos, you've seen more videos online and social media, and this is one of the crucial ways that we spread that message of love to the whole world. We have some 70 countries that watch us online on a regular basis, and so that they know that there's a community here that cares for them. 2018 is going to be fabulous. Oh, great. Do I have to do that? No. This is scary for me. And we're continuing to spread that message of love and compassion into the world. Going forward, you're going to see some significant changes to our website so that folks who are coming to this place know how to get here, know what we stand for, and know how they can find those connection points, care points, and growth points in the life of our congregation. You're going to see some changes to the bulletin. And this isn't meant to scare you or to take away access to information, but is rather to help you find information much more easily. So you'll see some changes to the bulletin, but you'll also see improvements to the ways in which you get advertisements about upcoming classes and events. So be on the lookout for that. And finally, throughout 2018, we're going to undergo some strategic ad campaigns. We know that we have a message that's too good not to share. And so I'm really excited to announce to you that in the fall of 2018, you will see our brand popping up in all kinds of advertising around Pride. Just last week, we made the decision to become a sponsor, one of the sponsors of the Pride Festival this year, which is a big honor for us. Now, one of the things that I love about Cathedral of Hope is that in this congregation, more than any other congregation that I have been a part of, it is you that are the most effective and excited messengers of what we do here in this space. So going forward throughout 2018, you're going to hear me and other staff asking you to be that outreach in the world. Share that message of love. Connect with us on social media so that others might connect with us on social media. Tell your friends that this is the place to be on Wednesdays and Sundays throughout the week, doing all of the various outreach we do. We can say it, the clergy can say it, the board can say it, but people hear it when it comes from you. So I invite you to be the messenger of hope in the world. Thank you.
We had a great year last year when it comes to development at Cathedral of Hope. If any of you remember last year's annual meeting, the financial picture, our giving picture, was not that bright, and it is great this year. I'm happy to say, yeah. And it's because of you. I'm happy to say that we increased our pledge participation in last year's pledge campaign in the fall by 6% in terms of participation and over $400,000 in terms of dollars pledged. And that is just a remarkable increase. Last year, we introduced a lovely interactive pew card, the yellow pew cards that you see in the back of the pews, which has given members of our congregation who are auto givers, and there's many of us, an opportunity to once again express our personal gratitude to God, not just throwing a card in the plate, but adding a personal word of thanks to God, or adding an extra gift to God, but to do something interactive during the offertory, which for many people had become kind of a rote exercise. And I've heard so many positive comments about that. And it's also offered people who are not already auto givers a chance to put on the bottom of the card, I'm interested in auto givers. And we've added many new auto givers this year because of that card. I'm happy to say we've nearly doubled the size of the Bell Wall Society in the past year. The number of the people who have said to us, we are including Cathedral of Hope in our estate plans. And that is very exciting news because that is going to provide for the long-term sustainability of this congregation. This is going to help make Cathedral of Hope 100 years old. And all of the children that are part of our Sunday school class can know that Cathedral of Hope will be here for them. We introduced corporate matching gifts as a giving option this year. And for some members of our church who have embraced this, this is doubling their giving to the church each and every year. And we have begun to change the culture of generosity in this congregation with our Why We Give moments each and every Sunday. And I hear positive comments from people in this congregation every Sunday relating to those Why We Give videos. And if you would like to do one of those, see me, because we each have a unique and grace-filled story to share. And even though we think our story may not be special, it will be special to someone in this congregation, and we are meant to share those stories. In 2018, we have a number of things planned that will continue to improve our annual giving and pledging. We are going to continue to grow our endowment via promotion of the Bell Wall Society, and I just gave that form about the Bell Wall Society to someone this morning. And we are going to continue strong efforts related to our anniversary celebration and special fundraising projects like the new entry for a new era, which only has $150,000 left to raise to be fully funded. I tell people that giving is a spiritual practice, that giving is a transformational practice, because each time you give, you are going to be changed. You're going to be a different person after that act of giving. And that I believe giving is a gateway to a relationship, a greater, improved, deeper relationship with Jesus, just as worship is a gateway. So if you've only dipped your toe in the water, dip your whole leg in this year. You will love it. Thank you.
I think it's important that we hear what we achieved in 2017 and what we plan for 2018. And Patsy gave me the great segue there of a new entry for a new era, so that Cathedral of Hope is not the best kept secret in Dallas. Just this past week, I met with a representation of Visit Dallas and the Dallas Chamber of Commerce, who came to Cathedral of Hope because they had heard of the great work that we are doing. And 3 of those folks who have lived in Dallas all of their life had never heard of Cathedral of Hope. And 3 of them got lost getting here. Just saying. So as you can see, we have, over the last 2 years, worked with MESA, with our Building and Grounds Committee. Where are the Building and Grounds Committee? Let's give them a huge round of applause. Rise up, stand up, you guys. They have helped shepherd this new master plan of the Cathedral campus, and I believe have done a great job. We presented that to you last year, and under the board's direction, we are implementing phases of that plan so that we can begin to make this a reality. And if I heard the candidates for the board correctly, I think that I heard 5 years. And in 10 years, we'll have everything paid off and we'll be sustained for a lifetime. So from their lips to God's ears. or perhaps from their lips to our ears would be great. So we have, as you know, broke ground out on the Cedar Springs end of our campus. And I'm sure some of you are wondering, well, we broke ground and we've cleared all that tar macadam, but nothing else seems to be happening. It is happening, unfortunately or fortunately. We have a city that likes to micromanage projects sometimes. And so when they came out for our final look over, they made a decision that we needed to do one more permit cycle before we could actually begin to make the cut into the street. The good news about that, though, is that our pre-construction meeting has now been set for Monday morning at the City of Dallas, when we hope that we will then receive permission and pre-permit construction rights. So we are very hopeful that that big thing out there that's yellow will start to move and do some other necessary work. Some of you have asked, well, what is part 1A, what's part 1B, and what is this overall project? So we started with a project that we wanted to raise $600,000 so that we could complete part 1A, part 1B, and begin the work on the plaza that will connect the buildings here on between the Bell Wall and the Interfaith Peace Chapel. There's some exciting pieces about that. To let you know, as Patsy just said, we are now just $150,000 short of funding that entire $600,000 project. That is amazing for a project that's just been launched. We had some pre-project funds of $315,000, of course, came out of the Robert Trost bequest to us. We have committed and received funds already of $134,420. So as you can see, we are just $150,000 short. We are encouraging you to think about making a pledge and ensuring that we get this fully funded before we even move another piece of turf out there. That would be an exciting prospect for us to be able to do part 1A, part 1B. Part 1A is literally getting us from Cedar Springs to Nash and putting our new monument. Part 1B picks up on the other side of Nash and takes us all the way around to what we lovingly refer to as the Ford lot. But the Ford lot is not the Ford lot. The Ford lot is our lot. But we see more Fords parked out there during the day than any other car. And that will actually then begin the process for able to finish off the parking lot and bring us down to the plaza. The plaza, of course, is connecting the two buildings, and they will be connected with beautiful, beautiful memorial bricks that you'll be able to purchase once we have got funded. And so we'll be then selling bricks so that we can do that plaza, and you'll be able to celebrate weddings and memorials and birthdays, or just celebrate you by buying one of those bricks. And that will also have an incredible piece of art that's going to be actually made as part of that plaza. And then, of course, we'll then start working towards the other pieces. This because we know that we want the campus finished, and we want to have this done within 5 to 10 years. So I want to say I'm grateful for that. If you want to know, part 1A, as you can see, right there, let me see if I can. No, I can't. I'm no good at this. That wasn't in my toolkit either. So, but if you've got any questions about it, please do see me. There are always pledge cards. You can pay those off in 12 to 24 months, whatever best suits your financial. But I do want to make it very clear, this is above the pledge that you've already made for 2018. Because we want to end 2018 on a good financial standpoint, because we know that there are some maintenance pieces of this building that will need to be replaced in the future. Our roof is already 10 years old, and we know that we're going to have to start looking at that. Also air conditioning, and many of the infrastructure of our building will also, and so the finance team are already looking at how they will be able to move funds over to ensure that we can do our regular maintenance. And finally, the slide up there will show you some of the giving levels that we're looking for. If you see yourself on any of those giving levels, please fill out a pledge card. And let's get this fully funded before the city even gives us our permit to begin the work. Wouldn't that be an exciting prospect for Cathedral of Hope, and really place us as one of the sustaining places here in Dallas, Texas. So thank you so much. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you to the Building and Grounds Committee. And thank you to the board who have done a great job in shepherding this process through and ensuring that we have the funds available as they are needed. I'm going to move over. Oh, George, did you want to say something quickly? Are you done with this? I'm done with the new entry because I know we've got to keep moving.
So we only have a couple more items on the agenda, so thank you for sticking around. I'd like to next introduce for the financial reporting our Chief Accountant, Scott Cannon. I would like you all to show Scott some appreciation. Since he's been here now, we've been extremely blessed in his handling of our budgets and our finances. Anyone that's been to a board meeting or seen our financials sees that he has a firm, controlling hand on the church finances. He's helped us usher through some very good times. Please appreciate Scott.
You gotta love family meetings, right? Yeah, so we're all a big family. That's what this is all about, right? The family coming together, take care of business. Unfortunately, we have to talk about money. We can skip this part. You wanna skip this part? No, okay. I'm good. So what I wanna give you here today is an overview of how our funding is used so that you can see the different areas of the church. We presented the same slide when we did the budget overview last fall. The next I want to do is kind of give you some financial information and analysis so that you have some perspective of what we did versus what our budget was in 2017 and what we did in 2017 versus what we did in 2016. So that gives you some perspective. Then I'll talk about a little bit about 2018, where we are, and then also 2019 and forward. So here we go. These are our ministry areas. So the money that comes from you and from all of the other sources that we have, rental income, interest income, all those different sources, events that we host here that we get a fee for, go into these ministry areas. And as you might imagine, worship is the largest area with almost 50% of our funding going to worship. In order to come up with these areas, what we did was we took our facilities and our admin costs, and we allocated those to each of these ministry areas. So you'll see that coming up here. The next largest area is outreach and media. The next area comes up is children and youth. The next area, spiritual formation, and the last is congregational care. So now let's take a look at some of the financial information. And you have this, so if you can't see the screen, you have a handout there as well. What I would characterize 2017, although we started out pretty rocky, as Patsy mentioned, we realized that we had some issues with giving, and certainly the programs and things that Patsy put in place and that the staff rallied around, and you as a congregation rallied around, were taking a look at our giving. Where are we? What's God speaking to my heart, and do I need to step up? And we've certainly seen that as we progress through the end of the year. So by the time we ended 2017, we found ourselves very stable in terms of being financially sound. The first thing I want to look at is what's called a balance sheet. And as you might imagine, balance means this side equals this side. So what you do is you take your assets over here and you balance those with what you owe and then the balance of what's left over, which is called fund balance. So the top page here that we're looking at is the balance sheet, is the assets. This is a snapshot of December 31st, 2017, where we ended the year. So we ended the year with $1,682,000 in change in cash and invested cash. We had a few receivables and prepaid expenses. The largest thing that we have to do is we have to prepay 3 months of our health insurance and other coverages, and we have to pay that in December, and that applies to January, February, March. That number is about $42,000 of that $68,000. Inventory, which is the inventory in the bookstore, and then our fixed assets net of depreciation. So altogether, we had total assets of $14 million. On the other side of that balance sheet, the liabilities and fund balance, We had accounts payable. There's no way to pay all of our bills that are related to December by the end of December. So in January, as those bills come in, we put those into accounts payable. And then we had some deferred revenues where people had either given their tithe and pledge in 2017 that applied to 2018. We had some prepayments for event rentals and some things like that. So those constitute our deferred revenues. We have that nasty mortgage payable of $5.2 million. If anyone wants to write a check, I'll take it. And then the difference between what our $14 million in assets are and these liabilities is $8,900,000. That's our fund balance, or equity, if you're familiar with financial statements. So there you have the balance sheet. The next thing that I want us to take a look at is kind of a snapshot of where we were operationally. There are two elements to this. The first element is a 2-year comparison. We had a net surplus. We ended the year operationally in 2017 with a net surplus of $94,000 versus 2016 we actually had a deficit of about $2,000. So our difference there, we were like $96,000 ahead. So historically we did better in 2017 than we did in 2016. Budget versus actual 2017. We had budgeted for $109,000 of surplus, which basically pays the principal payment of our mortgage. And we actually achieved $94,000, so we were very, very close to what our budget did. Now, there's a lot of finesse and finagling going on with what we actually did. We're going to take a look at the next couple of slides have to do with actual versus budget. So in our revenues, you can see there in the bottom right-hand corner that we were short by $177,000. The bulk of that was in contributions, ministry contributions. We had planned for $2,225,000 of contributions and only achieved about $2.1 million. And you can see the other differences there. Michael mentioned that Sources of Hope did really well during the year, and you can see that change there. That's a significant increase for Sources. The rental income was lower than what we projected because we lost the Deaf Action Center. And that somehow that got into the budget for the whole year. But we were able to make up some of the differences as we went through the year. The next slide shows our expenses, actual versus budget. Let me back up to this slide here. So you see in our revenues that we were $177,000 under our budgeted revenues. But if you look at our expenses here, we were also $163,000 under our expense budget. So the staff did an excellent job in watching their budget areas. We made some changes in terms of contracts that we renegotiated. So kudos to the staff. This is not my doing. These were things that they cut back on and things that they actually did on their own. Yeah. So in every area up there, you see that there were savings over what we had budgeted. The Sources of Hope needs a little bit of an explanation. If you have more in sales, you actually have more in cost of sales. So that's really not a budget snafu. That's kind of a good thing that we were over our budget there with Sources of Hope. The next slides I want to show you are 2017 versus 2016, so you can see the differences there. We actually had, if you look at the total line, we actually had more revenue sources in 2017 than we did in 2016 by $102,000. Very close on the contributions, the top line up there, ministry contributions. The next slide shows the expenses that revenues that came in the designated and capital areas. There's a few explanations that you need to see here because we're actually showing, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, an additional $271,000 over the previous year. The top line there is a lot of that. We received bequests and permanent endowment contributions of $193,000. And you can see that the outreach and the capital programs had increases as well. The next slide shows our 2017 versus 2016 expense areas, and these are our major areas. And you can see where we achieved some savings. It was pretty similar to what we spent the year before, although we did have reduced costs in 2017 over 2016 by $31,000. I know you don't want to hear me read every number to you, right? These are not things you want to know. In our non-operating expenses, which are basically the capital expenditures and the designated and project accounts, you can see the comparative there between 2017 and 2016. On the top line there, the capital expenditures in 2016, we did some major renovations here. If you recall, the scaffolding that was up for months in front of the bell wall, that was a very expensive project. We also had our campus master plan updated and some development work put on that. In 2017, as Reverend Andrea mentioned, we did replace one of our file servers, so that was part of our capital expenditures there. And then the next line down, designated projects and accounts. In 2017, we activated Dallas Hope Charities. So that number there that shows $350,000, almost $100 and something thousand of that money was actually transferring all of the designated account money over to Dallas Hope Charities. Dallas Hope Charities manages those funds just like we manage them here at Cathedral of Hope, only they're over in Dallas Hope Charities. So what's on tap for 2018? The first thing is, you should know, is that our year-to-date ministry revenues are about $3,400 over budget. They're also about $25,000 through the end of February over where we were in 2017. So that's great news. The next thing that you should know is that our operating expenses are completely within our budgets that the board approved back in the fall. One of the concerns in times when money was lean was that monies were borrowed from designated and capital accounts. Those monies have all been repaid. Those accounts are all caught up and up to date, and they're fully funded. And we have, as of last Monday, over $350,000 in operating reserves and cash. Moving on to 2019 and beyond, one of the things that the stability that came in 2017 showed us that in 2019 we can start actually working by developing 3-year budgets that roll forward each year. This will help us in our planning in terms of staffing levels and all the other types of things that we need to plan for, rather than just planning on a 1-year basis. If we have a 3-year rolling budget, so that we're always looking 3 years out. Another thing that the stability has brought to us is an opportunity to look at funding reserve accounts, so that when it's time to replace the roof, when it's time to replace the HVAC system, or any of the major types of repairs that we might incur around here, that we'll have those funds available. So those items actually need to be added into our budget every year, so that we transfer that money into that reserve account, so that when we need to make those expenditures, those funds will be available. So thank you very much. It's been an exciting year, and I look forward to what we're going to do in 2018.
So before Scott steps away, is there any questions from the congregation for Scott and the wonderful information he's given us?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Scott. So we're almost done. Yes. Okay. So Robert from Bylaws Committee, if you'll please come up. He's going to give you a brief overview of the next part of your ballot. We have one more section to vote on still, the recommended bylaws changes. As the board, we take recommendations from our committees. So as the Bylaws Committee, they have worked long and hard to go through our current bylaws, see where things may need to be addressed, and he's going to give you the results of their work over the past year. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, George. Today we have 4 proposed changes to the church bylaws. They're actually pretty straightforward, but I'd like to share a little background with you first. I promise I'll be brief. These proposed changes were recommended to the Board of Stewards by the Bylaws Committee in November of last year. They're based on close review by the committee as well as input from other standing committees. They've been approved by the board to be placed on today's ballot for a vote by you, the members of this church. Second, the wording of these 4 items comes from the current church bylaws, and then the proposed changes are shown there for you in bold. So I'd like to briefly review these proposed bylaws changes if you'll follow along with me on your ballot. Please see proposed bylaw change number 1, which is a change to the preamble. This section describes the identity and purpose of the church. The bylaws currently use the word liberal to describe the church community. The committee recommended the bylaw be changed, substituting the word progressive for the word liberal as shown in item number 1. The use of the word progressive aligns with the Cathedral's stated values of being vibrant, inclusive, and progressive. More discussion on the theological difference between these terms has also been included under the rationale heading on your ballot. I'll leave it to you to review that part on your own, and you can vote accordingly. But for now, let's move on to the next item on the ballot. Please see bylaw change number 2, Section 4, Members and Friends. This section defines the rights and privileges of members and friends and differentiates between the 2 classifications. The language regarding friends of the church and their service on committees. The proposed bylaw change is to insert the word non-voting into the language regarding friends of the church and their service on the committees. The rationale for this proposed change is for clarification. By definition, a friend of the church is an individual who supports the purposes of the church and wants to be a part of the work of the church, but is unable or chooses not to become a member. Friends of the church may serve as members on committees at the request of the Board of Stewards and may participate in activities of the church. However, friends of the church are not eligible to vote at congregational meetings or to serve as chairperson of any committee. So, because friends of the church are currently not eligible to vote at congregational meetings, it is proposed that friends should be non-voting members on committees as well. Okay, let's move on to proposed bylaw change number 3. This is section 5 on the congregation. This section deals with the procedure for calling a special congregational meeting. The proposed bylaw change is to add the following language. The secretary of the board shall have 10 business days to validate and announce the results. The rationale for this change is to more clearly define the time frame and process for the release of voting results with the addition of the bracketed language that you see there in bold. And last, we arrive at proposed bylaw change number 4, bylaws section 7 on committees. This section lists the names of the 7 current standing committees of the Board of Stewards. The proposed bylaw change is to change the name of the Advancement Committee to the Development Committee. They've already been using this name, but they feel that that more accurately describes the work and priorities of that committee. So, these are the 4 items that are put before you today. Please mark your ballot yes if you approve, or no if you do not approve, for each of the 4 proposed bylaw changes. And thank you for your participation.
So I would like to thank Robert and his committee one more time. He was last year's chair. They have a new chair this year. So just as a reminder, bylaws need a 2/3 approval to pass. So it's not a simple majority in the bylaw changes, so think carefully. And please think carefully, but quickly mark your ballots. People will be coming around to pick up your ballots. This is the last voting part for today's meeting. We're going to close in a minute, but before we close, I'm going to invite Minister Winter back up. She does have the results of the initial vote in the selections. So she's going to come back up. And again, let's appreciate winner and the nominations committee.
Thank you, George. I want to acknowledge the candidates for running again, because again, they do put themselves out here, and we just want to say thank you guys for voting for them. At this time, I want to announce that as a result of your vote, you have selected Rich, Mary, and Roscoe to be on the Board of Stewards. And I definitely want to thank George. He's been a great leader for the Board of Stewards. And Stephen also has played a critical role for us in terms of being the secretary. He keeps us in order as well. So just want to say thank you to all of you. George?
So you will just drop your ballots for bylaws that are on the way out. We do not hold you while we count those. Thank you very much. So the next thing is going to be a couple of really quick things. Reverend Neil will close us in prayer, and then if anybody has any general questions after the meeting is adjourned, we'll entertain them for a few minutes. So Reverend Neil.
So who's excited to have been at the 2018 annual congregational meeting? For a congregation of our size, with all that we've had to convey to you today, to do that in under 2 hours is pretty amazing. And we thank you for investing those 2 hours with us. As I always say at the end of a Saturday meeting, this is not Sunday obligation. So we look forward to seeing you back tomorrow. We are not yet the Roman Catholic Church. I'm really excited about where this year is heading. And I really, really believe that when we gather again in 2019 for our congregational meeting, we will have even more exciting news of what we've achieved, but also what we plan to do in 2019. I'm grateful to the board who have embraced what it means to be a strategic board and to receive those strategic reports on a monthly basis. I'm grateful for the way in which the board has led our committees to move on recommendations and to move our board agendas to consent agendas, leaving more time for us to think strategically. And I could not be more proud, not just of every single one of you here today, but I could not be more proud of the entire staff of the Cathedral of Hope United Church of Christ, who spend hour after hour after hour after hour working in ministry on your behalf. They have a passion for this church. And I really could not be prouder of every single one of them. They have stepped up well beyond what we could ever expect of a staff of our size working for this congregation. So as we close out this meeting, we will entertain some questions or comments, but let's close out this part of the meeting with prayer. Let's pray. God, we are so grateful to the Holy Spirit that lives and breathes within the walls of this congregation and moves beyond it. We are grateful for the participation and engagement of its members, friends, attenders, and for all those who have a vested interest in the success of this congregation, not to make us look good, but that the good news of Christ might be made real in the world. Help us, O God, to continue that commitment, to be enthused by what we have heard, and commit again to the vision and mission of this congregation. As we build bridges with others, allow our territory and our impact to go beyond what we already know. And in the months and days and hours to come, may we be ambassadors for the good work that is done in this congregation through the name Cathedral of Hope and the outreach name Dallas Hope Charities. All that will come to pass, we give glory to you, O God. And now send us into the rest of this day, enthused and excited, that God might have the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
So as the outgoing chair of the Cathedral of Hope United Church of Christ Board of Stewards, I call the official part of the annual Congregational Meeting 2018 to close. I want to remind the new board members selected and the current board members, you have a work session immediately after this meeting to elect new officers and your committee liaisons. And then we'll have a few minutes if anybody has any brief questions or comments, if they'd step up. Yes, it should be available. Is it in the back, Scott? Or yes, in the back. Okay. In that case, I would like to wish everybody a happy Saturday. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to serve you.